Okay, so I thought I would share with everybody the in progress of this piece. I haven't really worked on it because it's just a stock piece. One thing I will point out is that I put a post on the back of this little bumblebee, two of them actually, and soldered it from behind so that I didn't have solder flow on the front of the piece. But this video here is really about soldering on a bale and how to make it easy on yourself. So first thing I'm going to do is point out the fact that it is really important that this pin is exactly the size of the drill bit. One of the things I like to do on my bales is to make sure that the jump ring is not really visible. So I'm just going to pull the pin out, and again, make sure that the pin is tight. Everything needs to be tight to solder properly. So look at the size of that jump ring compared to the size of the bale. You can see that it's going to basically cover it up. One of the other things to think about when you're soldering these bales on, first of all, I almost always make my own bales, I don't buy bales, is see how I've got about 1.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters of silver or wire sticking out. The reason for that is, and I'm just going to turn this around, so that if the heat is coming, I'll heat it from this side. It's going to heat this side first, and I'll put my solder on the far side, and what it'll do is it'll warm up, and when the solder hits soldering temperature, it'll draw towards the heat. Now, the reason for having that pin a little bit long is it will heat up and heat through, and that'll help the solder flow downwards. If I don't do that, I will have only surface soldering, and it'll cause me to have a weak solder joint. So I'm just going to push the pin back the other direction just a little bit, and so these are just little steel squares that I always keep at my bench in case I need them. Now in this case I'm going to start with the back. I've got the pin, the back of the pin, supported on this bar, and that just keeps the bale up off my piece. So what I'm trying to do here is there's a little bit of play right here. I'm trying to push this down, and by having this pin pushed up on this bar, it keeps my piece away from where I'm going to solder it. Now I'm going to solder this with medium, and so I'm going to get my solder ready here. Normally for my cuttlefish page, I wouldn't post this sort of thing on here because it's not cuttlefish, but, well, it is, but it's not. I just thought you'd find it useful. So this is another little piece of titanium here that I use to heat my solder up with. And I'm just gonna get my torch lit. I'm gonna try my micro torch for this today. Actually, you know what? I haven't started my torch yet this morning, so come on, little fella. I gotta get one of those auto starters. I really like those. Okay, so before I start, I'm just gonna dip my piece in my methyl hydrate and boracic acid, and that's just to reduce fire scale. There's that. I'm gonna use my titanium soldering pick, and I'll actually just, and I'm using liquid flux here. Make sure that my joints on both sides are fluxed. Now I'm going to come in, let's see if I can't move this up in the, move it up in the camera for you a little bit. So my solder is right here, so I'm going to grab my solder first, make it into a nice little ball, and then like I said, I'm going to heat this from the back side, so from the side around, and I'm going to set my solder on the far side between the pin and the bale. There it goes. It already flowed because I've had it nice and warm. I'm going to flip it over. Again, leaving it so that the pin is on top of the steel bar so that it pushes it away from the area that I'm soldering. It'll give me a little bit of playroom, and I'm just going to move this over here so it's a little bit easier. Grab another piece of solder, warm it up, place it on the far side. Again, the little pin gets some heat. There we go. Once it flows, I like to make sure I move that around while the flux is ready. Now normally I would pickle this for a little bit, but because of timing, I'm going to pickle it for a very short amount of time. I don't want to waste everybody's time with the pickling process, but you really should get all the flux off of there before you move on. Just get my soldering area out of the way. And so here we go. Now we have this is soldered on. I prefer these movable bales. They really do work better. So now that extra pin, I'm just going to take a pair of side cutters, preferably small ones, and just cut that extra pin down on both sides. So I've just trimmed that down a little bit there. And then I'm going to use my Moore's disc. Now I've got it on reverse, and that's so that I can see what I'm doing better. Again, normally I would let this pickle longer before I start working on it. I'm watching that I don't hit the B with the Moore's disc. There we go. Now I'm just going to use a medium rubber wheel. I'm just going to dress it, so this is just a dressing stone. And I dressed it on a bit of an angle so that I can keep my tool on an angle and away from my piece. And then I'll polish this on the buff before I finish it up. There we go. So now, again, I'll throw this in the pickle. I'll pre-polish this. I generally magnetic tumble my cuttlefish because I like it better. Hey Sandy, how are you? So that's basically it. I debated on putting a stone in one of these, but then I thought, you know what, it doesn't really need it. I'll decide later if I want to drop something in there or not. But that's it. That's how I do my bales. All right, I hope it was educational. Thanks for watching, Sandy.